Well, it's been a long week and I've wanted to make this video for a few days now, and with the countless interviews finally coming to an end, I thought I'd finally put together what has been confirmed for Fallout 76 so far. The background footage is also pretty much every little bit of Fallout 76 we have seen. It's either from the Bethesda conference or the excellent no-clip documentary, which if you haven't seen, I strongly recommend. All interviews used as sources for this video will also be listed in the description. Please note this is only information that I've taken from the interviews that Bethesda have had at E3 this past week. I will be releasing some more in-depth videos from everything that we have learnt about Fallout 76 from NoClip's documentary soon, so make sure you stick around for that. Without further ado, let's get right into this. The game has of course been confirmed to start in Vault 76, acting as home to both the character creation and the start of every player's journey. Would it really be a Bethesda game without starting in a vault or in a prison? Whilst there, you may even find other players making their character, or making their way into the vast expanse that is West Virginia, which of course is Fallout 76's setting. Fallout 76 is said to play like you expect from Bethesda, but the main differences are that it's entirely online, and that all of the people playing are now the NPCs. With the players being the NPCs, Bethesda doesn't want this to be an experience full of grief. But incentives are of course offered for those willing to dive into PvP. It has however been reiterated multiple times during Bethesda's various interviews that this can be left alone. We'll have to wait and see what actually happens with that. To aid with this, the map won't be crowded. Although undecided, Bethesda have said that they are currently working within the realm of 24 to 32 players per server, and you can currently see everyone else playing on the map. However, I must say this may change upon release, so if it is wrong, please don't come back to this video and comment it. I personally hope this does stay, because it would be nice to see where other players are, especially if we are supposed to be the NPCs. If it was entirely PvP, obviously they'd take this out. But if they want players to be traders, as they've now cut the NPCs, then we should definitely be able to see where people are, especially if we come to recognise these people on these servers. But like I said, this may change, so we will have to see what happens with that. It's probably also worthwhile to note that you cannot build around key quest areas, meaning you hopefully won't get hit with a mini nuke every time you attempt to enter an important location. Even if you do have a bad run-in with other players, you will never lose your inventory or any of your progression. You then are given the option to respawn at a location of your choosing on the map and seek revenge, or even stay far away from your new arch nemesis. That'll be pretty good for everyone, because the last thing you want in a Fallout game is to lose your inventory. But people don't seem to think about it this way. In other Fallout games, so Fallout 4, Fallout 3, New Vegas, if you didn't save and you died, you would lose everything. Of course, you'd have to lose the hours of progress you may have not saved, because come on, we've all been there, we've all played, we've all been killed, and then we've had to go back to hours. Thankfully, they've got autosaves and stuff, which is a lot more helpful. But still, we would lose everything anyway, so with players getting all hurt about this, at least now we know that we won't lose progression and we won't lose our inventory. If anything, it'll just be an inconvenience as we have to respawn. But as they've said we can choose where this is going to be on the map, that might be a good idea. And with things in place for players not to run in with the same person again over and over, we could end up getting a good experience out of this. Despite players being the NPCs, questing systems from the previous installments will still remain, such as receiving quests through listening to a holotape or reading a note. They did mention that there is still robots, which may also be a crucial part of quest giving. Speaking of quests and mini nukes, the nuke launch sites we heard about at the E3 conference are also said to be an integral part of the main quest line. Although we don't know how they're involved in the story, and probably won't know this until launch, what we do know is that the nuke sites will be used to destroy and convert whole areas into new high-level zones. These zones are said to be difficult to survive, but are very rewarding for those who do. This is presumably some sort of post-game content that players who have been around for a while are still going to have some challenge doing, which of course they've got to do as they've spoke about the survival of online games boiling down to a few factors, and the replayability and retaining player interest is definitely something they're going to have to worry about. There will of course also be side quests for players to do, some of which can be recompleted to of course add to that replayability, but they also plan to add live events that will be accessed through on-screen prompts. So whether this is server-wide events for everyone to take part on set times, set days, or even something similar to Far Cry where you have to, for example, in this case, kill 10 Deathclaws and survive, or whatever the case may be, then that would be pretty interesting as well. But it also depends what we get from these live events and how we can do these, if we've got a squad, if we have to team up with random people, if there'll be any limitations. So this is something they do have to be cautious of as to not alienate players. VATS is still in Fallout 76, however as this is an entirely online game, VATS obviously won't pause the game. Instead you can choose your targets in real time, and apparently it works the same. We'll have to see how this works, but Todd has gone on record saying that he's not very good at these sort of twitchy shooter games, which will hopefully be a way to keep players who aren't good at survival games or aren't good at the twitchy shooting, they'll be able to cope well in this new world they've made. There is also a difference that seems to go unnoticed with VATS. In Fallout 3 the game froze completely, but in Fallout 4 you instead saw a slowed down view of a Deathclaw sprinting at you. So we're not unfamiliar with this mechanic changing from game to game. And yes, I've got to mention it, but there's still no usable vehicles. We'll have to travel on foot or presumably through the magic of fast travel. Who'd have guessed it? As further discussed in NoClip's documentary, a lot of the life of Fallout 76 comes from the myths and legends in West Virginia. The Mothman is a prime example of this. It was mentioned in an interview with IGN that the Mothman acts like a different kind of creature entirely, but they don't want to spoil this for us. This understandably seems to be the case with a lot of creatures and experience that have been crafted for us in Fallout 76. What we do however know is that the map has 6 unique regions. These regions all have their own defining characteristics and environments, and when nuked these places will also behave differently, so we're not going to have the same repeated nukes. It does however raise the question, what happens if an area between 2 regions is nuked? Are we going to have 2 merging nuke zones? That's something we're going to have to look out for. And with Bethesda capping the server capacity, this means that players will be more spread out, giving everyone a chance to make their own story, which seems to be a heavy focus of this game. Of course, sparking controversy from some fans. Like the mandatory vault or prison intro to each game, we've also come to expect controversy to come with each new title. The trailer showed the rough scale of the homestead you can make, and once logged off, your home will go with you. You log back on, and it will of course reappear. It's also worth mentioning that the player won't see servers, and you won't have to select a server to join, like you would for Elder Scrolls Online for example. This makes joining the game a supposedly pretty seamless experience. They have also said there will eventually be support for private servers where you can play with your own created mods, other user created mods, and there will be a service in place for this. So if we think back to Fallout 4, the service they offered for this was Creation Club. Although not to do with servers, they were essentially mods that you had to pay for. This of course had a lot of issues and people did not like this. However, if people are getting the opportunity to have private servers, although not at launch, I'm sure it will still bring a few people over who are a little bit skeptical about Fallout being an online game now. Like I said at the start, make sure to stick around for more in-depth analysis of what we find out about Fallout 76. Thank you very much for watching, and peace.